The Gaza sun beats down like a furnace on cracked concrete. Sergeant Naomi Carter wipes sweat from her brow, her dark eyes scanning the horizon where heat waves dance like ghosts over the barren landscape. At 27, she's already seen more combat than most soldiers twice her age. Her uniform bears the dust of a dozen missions, each one earning her the respect she thought she'd built with her unit. But respect, she's about to learn, can crumble faster than desert sand. Carter, briefing room, now. Staff Sergeant Miller's voice cuts through the morning air like a blade. His pale face is flushed red from the heat, sweat stains spreading across his tactical vest. Naomi straightens her shoulders and follows him into the cramped concrete building that serves as their temporary command center. The air inside is thick and stifling, barely cooler than the hellscape outside. Corporal Davis is already there, leaning against a makeshift table covered in maps and radio equipment. His smirk tells her everything she needs to know before he even opens his mouth. "We've got a civilian protection detail in Sector 7, Miller begins, his finger tracing a route on the worn map. 15 families need safe passage to the medical checkpoint. Intel says the area's hot. Naomi nods, studying the route. It's a death trap. 2 miles of exposed road with nowhere to take cover, perfect for sniper fire or improvised explosives. "What's the formation?" she asks, already calculating angles and escape routes in her mind. Davis chuckles, a sound that makes her skin crawl. "Well, that's the thing, Carter. We need someone to take point. Someone expendable." The word hits her like a physical blow. Expendable. Miller doesn't meet her eyes. "You'll be our advanced scout. Clear the path, draw out any hostiles." "You mean draw their fire?" Naomi says quietly. The pieces are falling into place now, forming a picture she doesn't want to see. "Look, it's just tactics," Davis shrugs. "Someone's got to be the canary in the coal mine. Might as well be the black recruit who'll take the bullet." The room goes dead silent except for the hum of a struggling air conditioning unit. Naomi feels something crack inside her chest, like ice breaking under pressure. She's heard the whispers before, seen the way they look at her when they think she's not watching. But hearing it said out loud, so casually, so cruelly, cuts deeper than any enemy blade ever could. "You planned this," she says, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "Both of you." Miller finally looks up, and she sees no shame in his eyes. Only calculation. "It's war, Carter. We all have our roles." "My role is human shield?" "Your role," Davis says, pushing off from the table, "is whatever we need it to be. You're a good soldier, but let's be honest, you're replaceable." The word hangs in the air like poison gas. Replaceable. Naomi thinks of every mission where she saved their lives. Every time she took the dangerous assignment without complaint. Every medal, every commendation, every sleepless night, standing guard while they slept safely in their bunks. All of it reduced to one word. Replaceable. "I'm not your shield," she says, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I'm not your sacrifice. Not today." She turns toward the door, but Miller's voice stops her. "Carter, if you walk away from this mission, you're walking away from your unit, your career, everything." Naomi pauses, her hand on the door handle. For a moment, the weight of 2 years of service presses down on her shoulders like a physical force. Then she thinks about her grandmother's words, whispered to her the night before she shipped out. "Baby, don't you ever let nobody make you less than what you are? Not for their comfort, not for their convenience, not for nothing." She turns back to face them, and both men take an unconscious step backward. There's something in her eyes now, something dangerous and uncompromising. "You want to know what's replaceable?" she asks. Cowards who hide behind good soldiers. Cowards who think skin color determines worth. Davis's face reddens. "Now, hold on just a minute." "I'm done holding on," Naomi cuts him off. "Find another shield, gentlemen. This one just resigned." The door slams behind her with a finality that echoes through the building like a gunshot. Outside, Lieutenant Maria Ramirez is waiting by the supply truck, her knowing look telling Naomi she heard every word. "Took you long enough," Ramirez says quietly. She's always been different from the others. Earned her rank through merit, not politics or prejudice. "Maria, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm choosing." Ramirez shoulders her rifle. "Those civilians deserve better protection than what Miller and Davis are offering." They climb into the Humvee together, leaving behind the shocked faces of their former teammates. As they drive toward the fortified border post, Naomi grips her dog tags tight enough to leave impressions in her palm. Behind them, she knows Miller and Davis are scrambling to salvage their mission, realizing too late that their expendable soldier was the backbone of their entire operation. The desert stretches endlessly ahead, but for the first time in months, Naomi feels like she can breathe. She looks at her reflection in the side mirror and whispers the words that will haunt her former comrades for weeks to come. They'll remember this. The secure radio crackles to life at 0800 hours sharp. Colonel Hayes's voice cuts through the static like broken glass, each word dripping with barely controlled fury. "Mission status report. Now." The silence that follows is deafening. Miller and Davis exchange glances across the cramped communications bunker, both men suddenly looking like schoolboys caught cheating on an exam. "Sir, we encountered unexpected complications," Miller finally manages, his voice cracking on the last word. "Complications?" Hayes' tone could freeze blood. 15 civilians are sitting in a medical tent right now because your patrol never showed. I need explanations, not excuses." Davis clears his throat, desperation making him bold. "Sir," Sergeant Carter abandoned her post. "Left us without proper reconnaissance. We had to abort for safety reasons." The lie hangs in the air like smoke from a burning building. 20 minutes later, the command center feels like a courtroom. Officers line the walls, their whispered conversations creating a buzz of tension that makes the air itself feel electric. Colonel Hayes sits behind a metal desk, his weathered face carved from stone. Battle ribbons cover his chest like armor, each one a testament to decades of service and sacrifice. Miller and Davis stand at attention, sweat stains spreading beneath their arms despite the morning chill. "Sergeant Carter," Hayes says, without looking up from his paperwork, "explain why my civilian protection detail became a humanitarian crisis." Naomi steps forward, her spine straight as a rifle barrel. Every eye in the room is on her, judging, calculating, waiting for her to stumble. "Sir, Staff Sergeant Miller and Corporal Davis assigned me as advanced scout for a hostile zone patrol without tactical support or backup communication." Her voice is steady, professional, deadly calm. "That's standard protocol for reconnaissance," Miller interjects. "Not when the assignment is designed to draw enemy fire, while the rest of the unit maintains safe distance." Naomi's words hit like precision strikes. "Not when your own teammates call you expendable to your face." The room goes cemetery quiet. You could hear a pin drop on concrete. Davis shifts uncomfortably. "That's not how we meant it, Carter. You called me the black recruit who'll take the bullet. Each word is measured, deliberate, final. You plan to use me as human bait without my knowledge or consent." Several officers glance at each other. This isn't just about mission failure anymore. This is about something deeper, uglier, more dangerous to unit cohesion. Colonel Hayes finally looks up, his gray eyes moving between the three soldiers like a predator selecting prey. "Is this accurate, Staff Sergeant Miller?" Miller's face goes pale. "Sir, tactical decisions sometimes require difficult choice." "That wasn't my question." The silence stretches like a taut wire ready to snap. Finally, Davis breaks. "We may have used some inappropriate language, sir, but the mission parameters were standard." "Standard to sacrifice soldiers based on race?" Hayes's voice drops to a whisper that somehow sounds louder than shouting. Naomi feels the familiar sting of isolation as several officers avoid her gaze. Even now, even with the truth laid bare, she can see the doubt in their faces. The subtle shift away from her, The careful neutrality that speaks volumes. It's a feeling she knows by heart. Brooklyn, 15 years ago. Naomi is 12, standing in the principal's office while teachers whisper about the difficult girl from the projects. Her mother, Sarah Carter, works double shifts at Kings County Hospital just to keep food on the table and clothes on Naomi's back. But she never misses a parent conference, never lets anyone diminish her daughter's worth. "Baby girl," she says that night as they walk home through streets that smell like car exhaust and broken dreams, "the world's gonna try to make you small. They'll use your color, your gender, even your beauty against you." Young Naomi kicks at a bottle cap, her sneakers scuffing against cracked sidewalk. "Why, mama?" "Because when you're different, when you're strong, it scares people who built their whole lives on being ordinary." Sarah stops walking and kneels down, taking her daughter's face in work-worn hands. "Promise me something, baby. Promise me you'll never let them make you less than what you are. Not for their comfort, not for their fear, not for nothing." Back in the present, Colonel Hayes is studying personnel files, his expression unreadable. "Sergeant Carter, you're dismissed pending further review." The words hit like physical blows. Pending review. Military speak for career death sentence. As she turns to leave, she catches fragments of whispered conversations. Always knew she was trouble. Probably playing the race card. Pretty girls like that always think they deserve special treatment. Each comment is another weight added to shoulders already carrying too much. But Naomi Carter learned long ago that respect isn't something you ask for politely. That evening, in her small quarters, she methodically packs her gear. Each item folded with military precision, each decision made with calculated purpose. Her dress uniform goes in first, the ribbons and commendations she earned through blood and sweat. Then her field gear, worn smooth by countless missions where she proved herself again and again. At the bottom of her footlocker, wrapped in plastic, is a photo of her mother in nurse scrubs. Sarah Carter died of cancer 3 years ago, but her words echo across time and distance. Naomi holds the photo up to the dim light, her reflection ghosting over her mother's face. Outside her window, she can hear Miller and Davis talking to other soldiers, spinning their version of events, painting her as the problem, the troublemaker, the one who can't be trusted. She sets the photo down and looks at herself in the small mirror mounted on her wall. The same face that's been called too pretty for combat, too black for leadership, too female for respect. But behind her eyes burns something they never counted on. Something they tried to break but only made stronger. She whispers the words that will carry her through whatever comes next. Words her mother taught her in the projects of Brooklyn. Words that have never failed her yet. "Respect isn't given. I'll make them pay attention." The border outpost feels like exile. But Naomi Carter has learned to turn exile into opportunity. At 0600 hours, she's already hunched over tactical maps spread across a makeshift table, her finger tracing supply routes through hostile territory like a chess master, planning 20 moves ahead. Lieutenant Ramirez enters the communications tent with 2 steaming cups of instant coffee, the bitter smell cutting through the dusty morning air. "You've been up all night again," Maria says, setting a cup beside Naomi's elbow. "Even strategic swords need sleep." Naomi looks up from her calculations, a slight smile breaking through her focused intensity. "Strategic sword? That what they're calling me now?" "That's what I'm calling you." Ramirez settles into a folding chair, wincing as it creaks under her weight. "Because while Miller and Davis play soldier, you're actually winning wars." The maps before them tell a story of brilliance under pressure. Red lines mark enemy patrol routes, blue dots show friendly positions, and green arrows trace the supply convoys that have kept their entire sector alive for the past 3 weeks. Every line drawn by Naomi's steady hand. "Route Charlie needs adjustment," Naomi says, tapping a section where the path curves too close to known sniper positions. "If we shift it 2 clicks east, we shave 4 minutes off delivery time and cut exposure by 60%. Ramirez leans forward, studying the calculations. "Numbers don't lie. And these numbers are poetry written in logistics and survival. How do you see patterns that nobody else sees? Brooklyn taught me chess, Naomi says, taking a sip of coffee that tastes like dirt and determination. My neighbor, Mr. Rodriguez, retired NYPD. Every afternoon after school, he'd set up the board on his fire escape. She moves a pencil across the map like a chess piece, each motion deliberate and calculated. He used to say the best players don't just see the board as it is. They see it as it could be 5 moves from now. Her voice softens with memory. Pain makes you see deeper, he said. Because when you've got nothing left to lose, you stop playing it safe. The radio crackles with morning reports from sector commanders. Supply requests, casualty updates, the endless rhythm of military communication that keeps chaos at bay. But underneath each transmission, Naomi hears something else. The subtle stress in voices when convoys run late. The relief when her routes deliver exactly on schedule. Her plans aren't just lines on paper. They're lifelines. Outpost 7 to Border Command, comes a voice through the static. Medical supplies arrived ahead of schedule. How the hell did you get them through that minefield? Ramirez grins and raises her coffee cup in a mock toast. To the strategic sword and her magic maps. It's not magic, Naomi says, but there's warmth in her voice now. It's just paying attention to what everyone else ignores. 20 miles away, at the main compound, Miller and Davis are discovering exactly what everyone else has been ignoring. Their latest patrol stumbled into an ambush that Naomi's intelligence reports had predicted 3 days earlier, the reports they'd dismissed as over-analytical. 8 soldiers pinned down for 4 hours because they'd taken the safer route that turned out to be anything but safe. Davis kicks at a supply crate in frustration. How the hell did Carter know about that checkpoint? Miller doesn't answer, but guilt sits heavy on his shoulders like desert heat. Every mission that goes wrong, every supply shortage, every tactical failure seems to point back to the same uncomfortable truth. They'd thrown away their best strategic mind over pride and prejudice. Back at the border post, Naomi is orchestrating something that looks like military magic. 3 separate convoys, moving through different sectors, all timed to converge at a forward medical station exactly when needed. No wasted fuel, no unnecessary exposure, no soldiers left hanging. Convoy Alpha. Adjust speed to 65%. She speaks into the radio with calm authority. Beta, maintain current pace. Charlie, you're running hot. Drop to 70% and watch for the dust cloud at marker 6. Ramirez watches her work with something close to awe. You're not just moving supplies. You're conducting a symphony. Every convoy that makes it through is a life saved, Naomi says without looking up from her maps. Every efficient route is ammunition in the right hands when it's needed most. But beneath the professional calm, something else is building. Each successful mission is proof of what Miller and Davis threw away. Each perfect delivery is evidence of their catastrophic mistake. She's not just doing her job anymore. She's building a case, one flawless operation at a time. The afternoon brings news that makes even the seasoned officers take notice. Naomi's supply routes have achieved a 97% success rate over 3 weeks. In a combat zone where 50% is considered exceptional, 97% is practically miraculous. Command wants to know how you're doing it, Ramirez says, reading from an encrypted message. They're thinking about implementing your methods sector-wide. Naomi folds her maps with precise military creases, each fold a small act of control in a chaotic world. Good. Maybe next time they'll think twice before throwing away their assets. The words are quiet, but they carry the weight of promise and threat in equal measure. That evening, as the sun sets over the harsh landscape, Naomi sits on an ammunition crate outside the communications tent, watching the horizon shimmer with heat mirages. In her pocket is a request from Sector Command. They want her to design supply protocols for the entire Gaza peacekeeping operation. Recognition that should have come months ago, now arriving because her excellence can no longer be ignored. She thinks about Miller and Davis, struggling with missions that would have been simple if they'd had her support, fighting battles they didn't need to fight, losing ground they didn't need to lose. All because they saw expendable where they should have seen invaluable. Ramirez joins her, settling onto a nearby crate with a grunt of exhaustion. "You're planning something," she says. "It's not a question." Naomi's smile is sharp as the desert wind. "I'm planning everything." The strategic sword is about to cut deeper than anyone imagined. The emergency klaxon shatters the morning calm at 0730 hours. Red alert. Civilian extraction. High priority. Colonel Hayes's voice booms across the compound's loudspeaker system, cutting through the chaos of soldiers scrambling for gear. Building collapse in Sector 5. Family of 6 trapped in the ruins. Hostile sniper activity confirmed in the area. Naomi is already strapping on her tactical vest when Ramirez bursts into the communications tent, eyes wide with urgency. "They want you to lead it," she says, breathless from running. "Hayes specifically requested you as primary strategist." For a moment, Naomi feels the weight of vindication. After weeks of proving herself through supply routes and logistics, Command finally recognizes what she's capable of. But vindication comes with a price. Miller and Davis are already suited up, waiting by the armored transport. Their faces show everything they're not saying. Resentment, wounded pride, the bitter taste of having to follow orders from someone they tried to sacrifice. Hayes approaches with a tactical tablet, satellite imagery showing a 3-story building reduced to concrete and twisted metal. Red heat signatures pulse on the screen, marking the location of survivors. "The Khalil family," he says, pointing to the thermal readings. "Parents, 4 children. The youngest is maybe 6 years old." Naomi studies the imagery with surgical precision. Sniper nests marked in yellow, escape routes highlighted in blue, every angle of approach calculated and measured. "Overwatch positions here and here," she says, tracing paths on the screen. "Primary extraction route is blocked by debris. We'll need to go through the alley system. Approach from the southeast." Miller shifts uncomfortably. "That route puts us in the open for 30 seconds. Plenty of time for a sniper to line up shots." "Not if we move right," Naomi says, her voice calm as steel. "Smoke grenades at intervals, coordinated advance in 2-second bursts. The dust from the collapse provides natural cover if we time it correctly." Davis stares at the screen, doubt written across his features. "How can you be sure about the timing?" Naomi looks at him with eyes that have seen through his limitations and found them wanting. "Because I pay attention to things that matter instead of things that don't." The convoy rolls out 10 minutes later, 3 Humvees cutting through streets that smell like cordite and fear. Naomi rides in the lead vehicle, radio chatter painting a picture of escalating danger. Sniper fire confirmed from the hotel complex. 2 rounds, no casualties. Civilian movement in the target zone. Multiple families attempting evacuation. Medical teams standing by at Checkpoint Delta. As they approach the collapse site, the scope of destruction becomes clear. What used to be a family home is now a tomb of concrete and rebar, smoke still rising from pockets of smoldering debris. Somewhere underneath that mountain of rubble, 6 people are running out of air. Naomi keys her radio, her voice cutting through the static with absolute authority. "Alpha Team, position smoke canisters at markers 1, 3, and 5. Bravo Team, suppressive fire on the hotel complex when I give the signal." Miller and Davis flank her position, weapons ready but faces tight with nervous energy. This isn't logistics or supply routes. This is life and death measured in heartbeats and inches. "Movement," Davis whispers, pointing toward a shattered window 3 blocks away. "Possible sniper position." A muzzle flash erupts from the building, followed by the crack of high-velocity rounds punching through concrete inches from their heads. Dust and stone fragments shower down like deadly rain. Naomi doesn't flinch. Her mind is already calculating trajectory, wind speed, reaction time. "Smoke now," she commands. White clouds billow across the street, turning the world into a ghostly maze of shifting visibility. Through the haze, she can hear something that makes her blood run cold. A child's cry, muffled but unmistakable, coming from deep within the rubble. "Move," she says, and leads the charge across 30 yards of kill zone. They weave through the smoke like dancers, each step precisely timed to the rhythm of covering fire. Miller stumbles over debris, panic making him clumsy. A sniper's bullet whistles past his head, so close it burns the air. He freezes, paralyzed by the proximity of death. Naomi's hand shoots out, grabbing his tactical vest and yanking him behind a concrete barrier, just as another round explodes where his chest had been. For a moment, their eyes meet, his, wide with shock and fear, hers, blazing with contempt for his weakness, but absolute commitment to bringing him home alive. "Stay low, stay focused," she hisses, "or we all die here." They reach the collapse site as emergency responders begin pulling away chunks of concrete with heavy machinery. The sound of the trapped family grows stronger, more desperate. A small hand appears through a gap in the debris, tiny fingers covered in dust but still moving. "Got them," Naomi calls out. "Child first, then work toward the adults." What follows is a ballet of precision and courage. Naomi coordinates the extraction while Miller and Davis provide security, their earlier tensions forgotten in the face of human need. The 6-year-old emerges first, coughing and crying but alive. Then his sister, 10 years old, clutching a broken doll like it's the most precious thing in the world. By the time the last family member is pulled from the ruins, the sun has moved across the sky and the sniper fire has gone quiet. 6 lives saved, 0 casualties. As they load the family into medical transports, Naomi strips off her tactical gloves and wipes sweat from her forehead. She doesn't celebrate, doesn't smile, doesn't even acknowledge the successful mission. Her silence is more devastating than any victory speech. Miller and Davis stand apart from the group, watching her coordinate with the medical team. Both men are thinking the same thing, though neither wants to say it out loud. Finally, Davis breaks the silence, with words that feel like stones in his mouth. "She's not who we thought." Miller nods slowly, the weight of realization settling on his shoulders like desert sand. The woman they tried to use as a human shield just saved their lives. The soldier they called expendable just proved herself invaluable. And she did it all without saying a single word about what they'd done to her. Somehow, that makes it worse. The makeshift bar smells like diesel fuel and desperation, carved out of a reinforced bunker with mismatched furniture and a generator that hums like an angry wasp. It's 2,200 hours, and the successful rescue mission has earned everyone a rare night of celebration. Off-duty soldiers crowd around tables made from ammunition crates, nursing warm beer and whiskey that burns like liquid fire. Naomi sits in a corner booth with Lieutenant Ramirez, both women sharing a bottle of something that might charitably be called bourbon. For the first time in weeks, Naomi's shoulders have dropped from military attention to something approaching relaxation. "You know what the funniest part is?" Ramirez says, pouring another round into their mismatched glasses. 6 months ago, Miller was bragging about how he could run tactical operations in his sleep. Naomi actually laughs, a sound so rare in recent weeks that it turns heads across the crowded bar. Yeah, well, sleep operations are about his speed. Did you see his face when that sniper opened up? Man looked like he was about to meet his maker and forgot to pack his Sunday best. The laughter feels good, like stretching muscles that have been cramped too long. For a moment, Naomi allows herself to forget about the betrayal, the isolation, the constant need to prove herself twice as hard as everyone else. But across the bar, Staff Sergeant Miller is drowning his shame in increasingly aggressive gulps of whiskey, each drink making his movements more erratic and his voice louder. "Should have seen Carter today," he slurs to anyone within earshot, acting like she's some kind of tactical genius. "One good mission doesn't make you Patton." Davis tries to quiet him with a warning glance, but Miller is past caring about discretion. "I mean, where was all that brilliance when we needed her before? running off like a scared little girl when the real work needed doing. The bar slowly goes quiet, conversations dying like candles in the wind. Every eye turns toward the corner booth where Naomi sits, her glass halfway to her lips. Ramirez starts to stand, but Naomi puts a hand on her arm. Let him talk. Miller pushes away from his table, swaying on unsteady legs as he makes his way across the room. The crowd parts before him like water, everyone sensing the electricity in the air. "You should have been there that day," he says, stopping at their table. His breath reeks of alcohol and bitter regret. "Those civilians counted on us, all of us." Naomi sets down her glass with deliberate precision, each movement controlled and dangerous. "I was never yours to throw away." The words hit like a physical slap. Miller's face reddens. Whether from shame or anger, it's impossible to tell. "You abandoned your post, left your unit hanging. I saved my life from people who wanted to sacrifice it." Naomi's voice is quiet, but it carries to every corner of the silent bar. "There's a difference." Miller's hands clench into fists. "You think you're better than us? Think you're special? I think I'm a soldier, not a shield." The tension snaps like an overstretched cable. Miller lunges forward, but before he can reach their table, Colonel Hayes appears like a ghost from the shadows. "That's enough," Hayes says, his command voice cutting through the alcohol-fueled rage. "Miller, you're done for the night. Davis, get him back to quarters." Miller allows himself to be led away, but not before throwing one last poisonous look over his shoulder. "This isn't over, Carter." "Yes, it is," Hayes says firmly. "It's been over for weeks. You just haven't accepted it yet." As the crowd slowly returns to their conversations, Naomi excuses herself and steps outside into the desert night. The air is crisp and clean after the stale atmosphere of the bar, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. Back in her quarters, she sits on the edge of her narrow bunk and slowly rolls up her left sleeve. The shrapnel wound from today's mission throbs with each heartbeat, a jagged line across her forearm where flying concrete found its mark. She opens her medical kit with practiced efficiency, cleaning the wound with antiseptic that stings like concentrated betrayal. Each movement is methodical, controlled, solitary. This is her ritual now, tending her own wounds because she's learned that relying on others means risking disappointment, or worse. In the small mirror mounted above her wash basin, she catches sight of her reflection. The face, looking back at her, shows the wear of combat and betrayal, but something else too. Strength. Hard-earned and unbreakable. Pain sharpens, she whispers to her reflection. Words her mother used to say during the hardest nights in Brooklyn. Pain teaches. Pain makes you stronger than they ever imagined. She thinks about Miller's drunken confrontation, about the looks from other soldiers who still question her choices, about the loneliness that follows her like a shadow even in crowded rooms. But loneliness, she's learned, can be its own kind of armor. The wound on her arm will heal, leaving another scar to add to her collection. Each mark tells a story of survival, of pushing through when others wanted her to break. Outside her window, she can hear the distant sound of generators and radio chatter, the endless rhythm of military life that never truly sleeps. Tomorrow will bring new missions, new challenges, new opportunities to prove herself all over again. But tonight, in the privacy of her quarters, she allows herself a moment of honest reflection. She came to this desert as a soldier, looking for respect from her peers. She's becoming something else entirely, something that doesn't need their approval to know its own worth. "I'll rise higher," she continues, the words becoming a promise to herself and a warning to anyone still foolish enough to underestimate her. The mirror shows her a warrior, forged in betrayal and tempered by excellence. A woman who learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be what others need you to be. Tomorrow she'll put the uniform back on and return to the careful dance of military hierarchy. But tonight, in this moment of solitude, she's simply Naomi Carter from Brooklyn. And Naomi Carter from Brooklyn has never learned how to quit. The horizon swallows the sun in a wall of brown fury that stretches from earth to sky like the wrath of ancient gods. Naomi watches through binoculars as the sandstorm builds momentum, moving across the desert with the inevitability of judgment. Wind speed 45 miles per hour and climbing, visibility dropping by the minute. All units, this is command. Hayes's voice crackles through the radio static. Massive sandstorm approaching from the southeast. Estimate 15 minutes to full impact. The supply convoy they're escorting suddenly feels very small and very exposed on the open road. 3 Humvees, 12 soldiers, and nowhere to hide from nature's artillery. Ramirez checks her equipment with practiced efficiency, securing everything that could become a projectile in the coming storm. "Where are Miller and Davis positioned?" she asks, though they both already know the answer will complicate everything. "Forward reconnaissance, 2 clicks ahead," Naomi says, lowering her binoculars, right in the storm's path. The first gust hits like a physical blow, rocking their vehicle and filling the air with stinging particles that turn daylight into twilight. Within minutes, the world transforms into a howling nightmare of sand and wind. Radio chatter dissolves into fragmented static. Alpha team. Position. Can't see. The voices are swallowed by the storm's roar. Through the chaos, one transmission cuts through with desperate clarity. "Mayday, Mayday. This is forward recon. Vehicle disabled, taking heavy sand. Need immediate assistance." Miller's voice, stripped of all bravado, raw with fear. Colonel Hayes's response comes through in broken fragments. "All units. Maintain position. Too dangerous. Wait for storm to pass." But Naomi is already checking her compass and GPS coordinates, her mind calculating distances and directions while the world disappears around them. "We can reach them," she tells Ramirez, having to shout over the wind. 2 kilometers northeast, following the ridgeline for cover. Hayes ordered us to hold position. Hayes isn't listening to Miller die on the radio. Ramirez looks at her for a long moment, sand already coating their goggles and equipment. Then she reaches for her rifle and checks the safety. Against orders it is. They push into the storm like swimmers diving into an ocean of sand. Visibility drops to less than 10 feet, forcing them to navigate by compass and instinct, while wind-driven particles slice through exposed skin like microscopic knives. The Humvee's engine struggles against the elements, air filters clogging with every breath of desert fury. Naomi drives by feel and memory, following terrain features she memorized during countless supply runs. "There," Ramirez shouts, pointing through the windshield at a dark shape barely visible through the swirling chaos. Miller and Davis's vehicle sits at a dangerous angle, front wheels buried in a sand drift that appeared in minutes. The engine is dead, buried intake suffocated by the storm. Through the passenger window, they can see 2 figures huddled inside, faces wrapped in whatever cloth they could find. Naomi pulls alongside and kills the engine, immediately feeling the full fury of the storm as wind rocks their vehicle like a toy. "Stay linked," she shouts to Ramirez, grabbing the rope from their emergency kit. "Visibility is 0 out there." They push into the maelstrom, connected by lifeline and trust. The world becomes nothing but noise and stinging sand, every step a battle against forces that want to lift them off their feet and hurl them into oblivion. Miller's door is jammed, sand piled against it like concrete. Davis is unconscious, blood trickling from his nose where flying debris found its mark. "Can you move?" Naomi shouts at Miller, her voice barely audible over the storm's roar. His eyes are wide with something she's never seen in him before, genuine fear mixed with desperate gratitude. "Naomi." His voice cracks. "We were wrong. About everything. We needed you." The confession cuts through the storm like a blade, words he never thought he'd say to the woman he tried to sacrifice. Naomi doesn't answer. There's no time for absolution in the middle of nature's fury. She simply grabs his tactical vest and starts pulling him towards salvation. The journey back to their vehicle takes an eternity measured in heartbeats and sand-filled breaths. Ramirez helps drag the unconscious Davis while Naomi guides Miller, who stumbles like a man walking through a dream of his own making. They load both men into the back of their Humvee, Davis starting to regain consciousness as shelter brings him back to the world of the living. "Where?" he mumbles, confusion clouding his eyes. "Safe," Ramirez says simply. "Thanks to your expendable soldier." The words hit Miller like physical blows. He looks at Naomi through the rearview mirror, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. She navigates through the storm with the same calm precision she brings to everything else. No drama, no heroics, just competence applied when it matters most. "Why?" he asks, his voice barely a whisper. "After what we did to you, why did you come?" Naomi adjusts their course slightly, following instincts honed by months of desert navigation. "Because that's what soldiers do," she says without turning around. "We leave no one behind, even when they wouldn't do the same for us." The storm rages for another hour before finally exhausting itself against the desert. As visibility returns and the wind drops to merely ferocious, they make contact with the rest of the convoy. Hayes's voice comes through crystal clear, relief evident even through radio static. "Forward recon, report status." "All personnel accounted for," Naomi responds. "No casualties," returning to convoy position. In the back seat, Miller stares out at the clearing landscape, seeing it through new eyes. The woman they called expendable just risked everything to save their lives. Davis, now fully conscious, watches Naomi navigate the final approach to the convoy with something approaching awe. "She didn't hesitate," he murmurs to Miller. "Not even for a second." Miller nods slowly, the weight of realization settling on him like desert sand. They had measured her worth by the color of her skin instead of the content of her character. They had seen weakness where strength lived. They had thrown away a diamond, thinking it was just another stone. And when the storm came, when they needed her most, she proved what she'd been trying to show them all along. She was never their shield to throw away. She was their sword, sharp and true, cutting through prejudice and fear to bring them home. The parade ground bakes under the Gaza sun at 0800 hours, but for once, the heat feels different. Today it feels like the warmth of vindication. Colonel Hayes stands at the makeshift podium, his dress uniform crisp despite the desert conditions. Behind him, the entire unit forms perfect ranks, every soldier aware they're witnessing something rare in military life. A moment when justice arrives exactly when it should. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hayes begins, his voice carrying across the assembled troops, "we are here to recognize exceptional leadership under extraordinary circumstances." Naomi stands at attention in the front rank, her uniform bearing fresh creases and polished insignia. 6 weeks ago, she was a sergeant fighting for basic respect. Today, everything changes. Sergeant Naomi Carter, front and center. She steps forward with military precision, every movement reflecting months of proving herself against impossible odds. Behind her, she can feel the weight of dozens of eyes, some admirous, others still adjusting to this new reality. Hayes opens a leather portfolio, reading from official letterhead that bears the seal of the Department of Defense. For exceptional tactical brilliance in civilian rescue operations, superior strategic planning under combat conditions, and leadership that exemplifies the highest traditions of military service. The formal citation continues, but Naomi's mind drifts for a moment to her mother's voice echoing across time and distance. "Baby girl, don't you ever let them make you less than what you are?" "She didn't, Mama. She didn't. By the authority vested in me by the United States Army, I hereby promote Sergeant Naomi Carter to the rank of Second Lieutenant, effective immediately." The gold bars catch the morning sunlight as Hayes pins them to her collar, each piece of metal representing battles fought and won, respect earned one impossible mission at a time. But more than the promotion, more than the ceremony, is what comes next. "Lieutenant Carter, effective immediately. You are authorized to select your own mission assignments based on tactical assessment and strategic necessity. No soldier under your command will be assigned to operations without full knowledge and consent. The words hit like artillery shells. Full knowledge and consent. Everything she was denied, everything she fought for, now guaranteed for every soldier who serves under her leadership. In the assembled ranks, Miller and Davis stand at rigid attention, their faces showing the complex emotions of men watching their former victim become their superior officer. After the ceremony concludes and the unit disperses, they approach her with the careful steps of men walking through a minefield of their own making. Miller speaks first, his voice stripped of all the arrogance she remembers from those early confrontations. "Lieutenant Carter, we owe you an apology. A public one." Davis nods, his usual smirk replaced by something that might actually be humility. "What we did was wrong. Not just tactically wrong, but morally wrong." Miller's words carry the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "We let prejudice cloud our judgment, and good soldiers paid the price." "We were cowards," Davis adds, the admission clearly painful. "We hid behind our assumptions instead of seeing what was right in front of us." Naomi listens without expression, letting them finish what they need to say. "We'd be honored to serve under your command," Miller concludes, "if you'll have us." For a long moment, the desert wind fills the silence between them. Then Naomi speaks, her voice carrying the authority of her new rank and the wisdom of her hard-earned experience. "Redemption isn't a ceremony, gentlemen. It's a choice you make every day, in every decision, for the rest of your careers." She pauses, letting the words settle. "I'll judge you by your actions going forward, not your apologies looking backward." Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Brooklyn, Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, climbs the stairs to apartment 4B with an envelope bearing official military postage. Sarah Carter opens the door wearing her hospital scrubs, exhaustion marking her features from another double shift. But when she reads the commendation letter, when she sees the words exceptional leadership and promoted to second lieutenant, the fatigue melts away like morning frost. Tears stream down her face as she clutches the letter, proof that her baby girl not only survived but triumphed. The projects of Brooklyn produced an officer in the United States Army. Back in the desert, Lieutenant Ramirez finds Naomi cleaning her new bars with military precision in their shared quarters. "You know the serious officer routine doesn't suit you," Maria says with a grin. "Too much gravitas for someone who still puts hot sauce on everything." Naomi looks up, surprised by her own smile. When was the last time she smiled without calculation, without defense, without armor? "I guess I'll have to learn to balance gravitas with Tabasco sauce." Now that's the officer I want to serve under. The moment of levity feels foreign after months of constant vigilance, but also necessary, like stretching muscles that have been tensed too long. That evening, as the sun sets over the harsh landscape, Naomi addresses her unit for the first time as their commanding officer. "I want to be clear about something," she begins, looking each soldier in the eye. "Respect isn't a courtesy in this unit. It's not something you give when you feel like it or withhold when someone doesn't meet your personal expectations." Her voice carries across the assembled troops with quiet authority. "Respect is survival. When you don't respect your teammates' intelligence, people die. When you don't respect their courage, missions fail. When you don't respect their worth as human beings, you lose the very thing that keeps us alive out here." She pauses, scanning faces that now show attention rather than doubt. Trust, unity, the absolute knowledge that every person in this unit will fight for every other person, regardless of race, gender, or background. Miller and Davis stand at attention in the front rank, both men understanding that they're hearing more than a speech. They're hearing the foundation of a new kind of leadership. "In this unit, we leave no one behind. We protect each other. And we never, ever treat any soldier as expendable." The words carry the weight of personal experience and professional commitment. Questions? Silence greets her, but it's the silence of respect, not resistance. "Outstanding. Dismissed." As the troops disperse, Naomi stands alone under the desert stars, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a familiar burden. But this time, it's a burden she chose. The autumn rain taps against the windows of a quiet study in Washington, D.C., where Major Naomi Carter sits behind a mahogany desk, her fingers dancing across a laptop keyboard. 5 years have passed since the Gaza desert, but the memories remain sharp as broken glass, crystallized by time into lessons that changed not just her life, but the lives of everyone who served alongside her. The manuscript on her screen reads Sword in the Sand, a soldier's journey from betrayal to command. Her voiceover begins, rich with the wisdom of battles fought both on foreign soil and within the human heart. They say war changes you. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought against the enemy. Sometimes they're fought against the people standing right beside you. The screen dissolves to a memory burned in cinematic clarity. Young Naomi in the Gaza compound, studying tactical maps by lamplight, her face fierce with concentration and unbroken dreams. I thought respect was something you earned through excellence. I learned it's something you demand through self-worth. Another memory surfaces. The morning Miller and Davis revealed their plan to use her as human bait. The shock, the betrayal, the moment her world shifted on its axis. Betrayal cuts deeper than any enemy blade, because it comes from those you trusted to watch your back. The images flow like water through her mind. The sandstorm rescue, Miller's desperate confession, her own hands pulling him to safety despite everything he'd done. But here's what betrayal taught me, that friendship never could. It taught me that my value doesn't depend on their recognition. My worth isn't determined by their respect. She pauses in her typing, looking at a framed photograph on her desk. It shows her unit from those final days in Gaza. Miller and Davis stand at attention, their faces showing hard-earned maturity. Ramirez grins beside her, lieutenant's bar is gleaming on her collar. The greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies. It's transforming them into better versions of themselves. The memories continue, each one a brushstroke in the portrait of transformation. Davis, 3 years later, leading his own unit with quiet competence. Miller, requesting assignment under her command, proving his redemption through action rather than words. Vengeance would have been easy. Growth was harder. But growth is what separates soldiers from warriors. Another image. Ramirez accepting her captain's commission, the ceremony held in the same parade ground where Naomi once stood accused of insubordination. My friend Maria taught me that loyalty isn't blind obedience. True loyalty means standing up when standing up is dangerous. The rain continues its steady rhythm as Naomi returns to her manuscript, adding new words to chapters that chronicle not just military service, but the evolution of character under fire. I wrote this book not as an indictment of those who wronged me, but as a testament to what's possible when we refuse to let others define our limitations. She scrolls through pages that detail tactical innovations born from necessity, leadership principles forged in crisis, and the delicate art of turning enemies into allies. Every scar tells a story. Every battle teaches a lesson. Every betrayal offers a choice. Become bitter or become better. The images fade to more recent memories. Naomi in dress uniform at the Pentagon, briefing senior officers on integrated tactical strategies. Her insights, once dismissed, now shape doctrine taught at military academies worldwide. They called me expendable. They were wrong. No soldier is expendable when you understand that our greatest weapon isn't technology or firepower. Another memory, speaking at West Point, addressing cadets whose eyes shine with the same fierce determination she once carried. Young faces, diverse faces, all learning that excellence has no color, no gender, no limitations except those we accept. Our greatest weapon is the knowledge that we are worthy of respect, capable of leadership, and deserving of the same honor we're willing to die to protect. The final montage begins, a symphony of images that tell the complete story. Her mother's tears of pride reading that first commendation letter, the rescued family from the collapsed building, now safe in refugee housing. The tactical manuals bearing her name, distributed to peacekeeping forces worldwide. Miller, now a steady staff sergeant, training new recruits with patience instead of prejudice. Davis, leading humanitarian missions with the same precision Naomi taught him in the desert. Both men forever changed by witnessing what they almost destroyed. The camera finds her now, walking across the grounds of Arlington National Cemetery, her dress uniform immaculate, ribbons and medals catching the afternoon sunlight. Each decoration tells a story of courage, leadership, and the long journey from betrayal to triumph. Her beauty remains radiant, but it's different now, enhanced by confidence, softened by wisdom, strengthened by trials that would have broken a lesser spirit. The desert taught me that survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest or even the smartest. She stops before a memorial wall, her reflection ghosted over the names of fallen soldiers, her past and present merging in that moment of remembrance. Survival is about knowing exactly who you are when everything around you says you're nobody. Her hand traces a name carved in black granite, a fallen comrade from another mission, another war, another test of her resolve. I learned to trust myself when others wouldn't trust me. I learned to stand alone so I could later stand with others. I learned that sometimes the sword must be drawn not to strike, but to shine. She turns from the memorial, her stride confident and purposeful, walking toward a horizon that holds possibilities she once thought impossible. The greatest battles are fought not on foreign soil, but within ourselves. The greatest victories come not from defeating others, but from refusing to be defeated by their limitations. Her voice grows stronger, carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom and unshakable faith in her own worth. In war, I learned this truth above all others. Your greatest weapon isn't your rifle, your tactics, or your training. The camera pulls back as she walks into the golden light of late afternoon, her figure becoming silhouetted against the eternal flame that burns for all who served. Your greatest weapon is knowing your worth. The screen fades to black, her words echoing in the silence that follows, a testament to the power of one person's refusal to accept anything less than the respect she deserved all along.